Behold, if fear no longer possessed a voice in your life, not silenced temporarily, not managed with weak compromise, not tamed through timid negotiation, but completely erased, utterly destroyed, permanently dead, what magnificent transformation would occur in the very fabric of your existence? Imagine awakening each dawn without the paralysis of hesitation, without the poison of second-guessing your every impulse, without that internal voice of defeat whispering its lies that you are not ready, not worthy, not enough to claim your rightful place in this world. What decisions would flow from your consciousness then, backed by the full force of your unleashed potential? What doors would you not merely open, but kick down with the thunder of absolute conviction? What dreams would you pursue with reckless, unstoppable fire, burning in your heart like the furnace of destiny itself? Because I tell you this fundamental truth that most men never comprehend. Fear is not your enemy. Surrender is the true destroyer of human greatness. Fear exists as a natural force, primal and ancient, whispering warnings and sounding alarms that have kept our species alive through countless generations. But fear only achieves victory when you bow before it, like a slave before his master. Each time you believe its lies, each time you shrink instead of stepping boldly forward, you make the most tragic trade imaginable. You exchange your power for the illusion of comfort. You surrender growth for the prison of safety. You stall your progress, suffocate your dreams, and stand frozen in place. Not because you lack strength or courage, but because fear has convinced you that stillness equals survival. But today marks the end of that deception. Today we expose fear for what it truly is: a liar of the highest order, a fabricated story, a shadow pretending to possess substance while having none. Today we do not merely manage fear or negotiate with its demands, we bury it completely. Not with shallow motivation or feel-good platitudes, but with truth that cuts like a sword, with discipline forged in the fires of daily practice, with purpose so magnificent it dwarfs every excuse you have ever entertained. In the next few moments, you will discover how to cease running from fear and begin hunting it with the determination of a master tracker. You will learn to stand tall even when your hands tremble with uncertainty, to act with decisiveness before fear has time to fade, to build a mind so sharp and disciplined that fear finds no room to establish residence. So draw a deep breath, step forward with the authority of one who has chosen victory, and refuse to look backward toward the graveyard of abandoned dreams. This moment represents the dawn of the day you finally kill fear and claim the life that has been waiting for your courage. Let us establish one truth with crystal clarity. Fear is not your adversary sent to destroy you. Fear operates as instinct, ancient and embedded in your very biology, to shield you from harm. In countless ways, this primal force has preserved your existence through dangers both seen and unseen. But what fear was never designed to accomplish is to lead your life, to serve as your guide, your counselor, your ultimate decision-maker. Yet that is precisely the role most people permit fear to assume in their lives. They surrender the steering wheel to this primitive force and then wonder why their existence feels like an endless circle, going nowhere while burning precious fuel of time and opportunity. You experience fear when you stand on the threshold of the unfamiliar, when you face something that threatens your comfort or challenges your control. This response does not indicate weakness. It reveals your brain performing exactly as it was designed to function. But here lies the truth most souls never hear. Fear itself does not stop your progress. Inaction becomes the real destroyer of dreams. The true enemy is not the fear you feel. It is the pause you take because of it. It is the opportunity you refuse to chase, the silence you choose instead of speaking your truth, the dream you postpone for some other time that never arrives. Most people wait for fear to disappear completely before they take action. They wait to feel brave, to feel certain, to feel ready. But that moment of perfect readiness never comes, because courage is not the absence of fear. It is action taken in spite of fear's presence. If you are waiting to feel completely ready, you will wait throughout your entire lifetime, watching others claim the victories that could have been yours. Those who move mountains, change entire industries, and carve their names into history, they feel fear exactly as you do, but they walk forward anyway, understanding that movement through fear builds the very courage they seek. This represents the fundamental shift that separates the victorious from the defeated. You do not need to become fearless. You need only to stop obeying fear as if it were a divine commandment. You need to stop granting it authority it never rightfully earned. Fear may occupy the passenger seat of your consciousness, but it must never again touch the steering wheel. And here lies a truth of tremendous power. The more you move through fear rather than around it, the smaller it becomes in your experience. Every time you take action while afraid, you teach your nervous system that fear does not mean stop. It means this matters deeply. It means step up to the challenge. It means you are approaching something of great importance. Repetition rewrites the very structure of reality within your mind. The more you face fear directly, looking it in the eyes without flinching, the less control it exercises over your decisions. You transform into something fear cannot inhabit, because you have trained your consciousness to act before fear can establish its paralyzing grip. Therefore, when fear next rises in your chest like a tide of uncertainty, remember this immutable law. You do not need less fear, you need more movement. Do not analyze endlessly. Do not overthink until paralysis sets in. Do not attempt to negotiate with the voice of limitation. Simply move forward with the authority of one who has decided. Because fear despises momentum above all else, and the very moment you begin to act, fear begins its inevitable death. Fear operates as a master storyteller, crafting lies so emotionally convincing, so psychologically believable, that they feel more real than truth itself. But here stands the brutal fact that most never confront. Fear is a liar of the most sophisticated kind, and the most dangerous lies it tells concern your own identity and potential. It whispers with the voice of false wisdom that you are not ready, that you lack sufficient intelligence, talent, or worthiness. It suggests that if you dare to try, you will fail spectacularly. It warns that if you speak your truth, others will laugh. It predicts that if you chase your dreams, you will crash and burn in humiliating defeat. Because fear speaks with the familiar tone of your own inner voice, you accept its pronouncements as reality. You embrace these limiting thoughts as truth, never recognizing them as fabricated stories you have repeated so many times they have become familiar. Not true, merely familiar through endless repetition. Fear thrives in the realm of imagination, taking a single moment of uncertainty and constructing an entire movie around it. You do not simply worry about a difficult conversation. You envision it going horribly wrong in every possible way. You do not merely hesitate to try something new, you see yourself failing publicly and permanently. You do not just fear rejection. You imagine complete humiliation, total abandonment, and ironclad proof that you never possessed what it takes to succeed. This is how fear achieves victory, not through truth, but through relentless repetition of limiting scenarios. The more you rehearse worst-case outcomes in the theater of your mind, the more your nervous system accepts them as inevitable reality. When your brain believes the threat is genuine, it floods your body with signals to retreat. Heart racing, breath shallow, muscles tense with anxiety. Suddenly, you are no longer living in the present moment. You are imprisoned in a future that exists only in your fearful imagination. In that state of mental captivity, even the smallest step forward feels impossible to take. But here comes the breakthrough that changes everything. If fear is constructed through repetition, then confidence can be built through the same method. If fear represents a story, then you possess the power to write a better one. You can create a narrative where you speak and your words carry weight, where you leap and land safely, where you fail and rise again stronger than before. The mind cannot distinguish between vivid imagination and actual memory. If you can visualize defeat in living detail, you can also visualize victory with equal clarity. If you can rehearse disaster until it feels real, you can also rehearse domination until it becomes your natural expectation. This becomes the true battlefield, not in the external world, but within the chambers of your own consciousness. The moment you stop accepting fear's destructive script and begin rewriting it with words of power and possibility, you reclaim complete control over your destiny. You do not have to feel brave before you can act with bravery. You do not have to feel certain before you can move forward with confidence. You simply have to stop giving fear the microphone of your attention, because the voice in your head possesses tremendous power, but it does not always speak truth. The biggest lie it tells is that fear represents your ultimate limitation. Fear is not your boundary. It is your signal, the flag that announces you are standing at the edge of your growth zone. What happens next depends entirely upon the choice you make in that crucial moment. Fear grows like a cancer in darkness, in silence, in the shadows of avoidance. The more you run from it, the more massive and threatening it becomes. The more you try to outthink it with clever reasoning, the louder its voice becomes in your consciousness. Fear does not shrink with the passage of time. It shrinks only through direct exposure to the very thing you have been avoiding. This is where most people fundamentally misunderstand the nature of courage. They wait for courage to arrive like a gift from heaven before they take the leap of faith. They wait for fear to fade away before they take the first step toward their dreams. But courage does not come before action. It comes as a direct result of action taken despite the presence of fear. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a pool filled with freezing water. You can test it with your toe, walk away in defeat, return tomorrow to overthink it again, and still feel that bone-chilling cold just from looking at the water. Or you can make the decision to jump in completely. Shock your system with the sudden change. Allow your body to adapt naturally, and discover that within seconds, you are no longer afraid. Why does this transformation occur? Because you have experienced the reality, rather than the exaggerated version your mind created. That is the power of exposure. It reveals truth by dissolving illusion. The goal is not to become completely fearless, which is neither possible nor desirable. The goal is to become willing to feel the fear and still step forward with determination, willing to look uncertainty directly in the eyes and declare, "You are not the end of my story. You are the beginning of my triumph." This is how you kill fear, not through avoidance that only feeds its power, but through exposure that strips away its mask of deception. You lean into what terrifies you most. You practice the uncomfortable until it becomes familiar. You make the unknown known through direct experience. The more familiar any experience becomes, the less power it holds over your emotions and decisions. Speak even when your voice trembles with nervousness. Show up even when your hands shake with anxiety. Launch the idea even if it remains imperfect. Ask the crucial question even if you fear the answer you might receive. This becomes your training ground, your daily discipline of courage, because repetition rewires the very structure of reality in your nervous system. The first time is terrifying beyond description. The second time is merely uncomfortable. The 10th time becomes routine and manageable. The 100th time transforms into complete freedom from that particular fear. The people you admire, the speakers who command attention, the leaders who inspire millions, the creators who build empires, the fighters who never surrender. They did not begin their journeys as fearless warriors. They started exactly where you stand now, scared, uncertain, trembling with anxiety. The only difference between them and those who remain paralyzed is this: they refused to stay afraid. They built tolerance to discomfort through daily practice. They did not run from the storm of uncertainty. They stepped directly into it, again and again, until the thunder could no longer shake their resolve. The truth you must accept is that fear never completely disappears from human experience, but you can train yourself to stop flinching when it speaks. You can stop shrinking when it rises in your consciousness, because you have faced it enough times to know it is merely a sound, merely a signal, and it does not possess the final word in your life. You hold that power. The only path to freedom is through the storm, through the trembling, through the failures, through the doubt that tries to convince you to retreat. You walk straight into the hurricane, not because you feel no fear, but because you know that on the other side of fear lies the life you have not yet lived. And that magnificent life is worth any price fear demands for passage. If you desire to kill fear at its source, you must journey to where it originates, within the invisible realm of your own mind. Fear does not begin in the external world of circumstances and events. It starts in your thoughts, in the silent, invisible stories you repeat to yourself without conscious awareness. Stories of inadequacy whisper that you are not enough. Stories of danger exaggerate every risk. Stories of failure predict disaster at every turn. These narratives play on an endless loop in the background of your consciousness, shaping your reality without your permission or recognition. Here stands the truth that will either liberate or terrify you. If you do not train your thoughts with deliberate intention, they will train you with random chaos. Left unguarded and undisciplined, the mind becomes a battlefield where fear always claims victory. But you were not born to be ruled by fear. You came into this world to reclaim your mind, to take back the pen of authorship and write a script worthy of your unlimited potential. This transformation begins with a simple but revolutionary realization. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts, the architect of your mental landscape, the programmer who chooses what gets to stay and what must be eliminated. When fear whispers its familiar poison that you are not ready, you do not simply accept this as truth. You question its authority with the force of awakened consciousness. Says who? Based on what evidence? According to whose standards? When fear declares that you will fail, you respond with the confidence of one who understands the game. Perhaps I will stumble, but I will learn, adapt, and grow stronger through the experience. You flip the script completely. You disrupt the pattern of automatic surrender. You reclaim your right to choose what thoughts dominate your inner world. Because every thought operates as a seed planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind. And whatever you water with attention and emotion will grow into your lived experience. If you water fear with constant attention, you will harvest hesitation, doubt, and paralysis. But if you water courage, if you flood your mind with powerful, intentional, disciplined thoughts of strength and capability, then boldness becomes your natural default response to any challenge. This is not about blind positivity that ignores reality. This is about intentional mental conditioning that creates new reality. The same way athletes train their bodies for peak performance, Warriors train their reflexes for battle, and musicians train their fingers for perfect execution. You must train your mind with the discipline of a master craftsman. Use affirmations that declare your worth with unwavering conviction. Practice visualization that locks your mental eyes on the outcome you desire. Engage in repetition that makes greatness feel as familiar as your own name. Tell yourself what you want to believe, and continue until it becomes who you are at the deepest level. Speak it with passion. Feel it with intensity. Act on it with consistency every single day. I am calm under pressure that would crush others. I face fear and move forward anyway. I do not shrink when challenged. I expand into my full power. These are not merely words floating in empty space. They are commands delivered directly to your subconscious mind, which is always listening, always recording, always responding to the dominant patterns you establish. But do not stop with thinking these thoughts. Live them through your actions. Let your behavior reflect your new identity with perfect consistency. Your mind learns by observing what you actually do, not what you claim you believe. When you do something bold despite feeling nervous, when you move forward despite internal resistance, when you speak up despite trembling hands, your subconscious registers a powerful message. We do hard things now. This is who we are. That is precisely how identity changes at the cellular level. That is how fear loses its iron grip on your decisions. You are not weak for experiencing fear. Fear is natural and often useful. But you remain weak if you continue allowing fear to lead your life like a cruel dictator. Discipline your inner world with the vigilance of a master guardian, and your outer world will bend to meet the new reality you have created. Guard your thoughts like treasure in a vault. Interrupt the lies the moment they appear. Install the truth through deliberate repetition. Remember that you always possess a choice in every moment. Fear may visit your consciousness like an unwelcome guest, but it only gets to stay and establish residence if you open the door and invite it in. Train your mind with warrior-like discipline, or be trained by fear with slave-like submission. The choice, as always, remains entirely yours to make. What if fear were not a stop sign commanding you to halt, but a signal pointing you toward the edge of your comfort zone where all growth begins? What if the very thing you are avoiding with such dedication is precisely the thing you were born to pursue? Most people interpret fear as a universal command. Don't go there. Don't try that. Don't speak up. Don't take that risk. But in the deepest reality, fear often operates as a compass, pointing with magnetic precision toward the exact location where your greatest growth awaits. That fire you feel burning in your chest, that trembling in your hands when opportunity calls. This is not weakness betraying your inadequacy. This is life itself reminding you that you stand at the threshold of something monumentally important. This is your spirit recognizing a moment of truth, a crossroads where destiny awaits your decision. The things that terrify you most completely are usually the very things that will grow you most dramatically. Public speaking that makes your heart race. Launching the business that keeps you awake at night. Ending the toxic relationship that drains your life force. Stepping fully into your purpose despite the risks involved. These are not dangers to be avoided at all costs. They are doorways to be opened with courage. The key to unlocking them is not perfection, not absolute certainty, not the complete absence of doubt. The key is movement. One step forward, straight into the heart of what terrifies you most. Courage is not the absence of fear, as so many mistakenly believe. Courage is the decision to move forward in fear's presence, to act despite the trembling, to speak despite the shaking voice, to leap despite the uncertainty of landing. When fear shows up in your consciousness like an uninvited visitor, do not shrink away in defeat. Lean into the fire with the intensity of one who understands its purpose. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it burn away every excuse you have ever made. Let it become fuel for the engine of your transformation. That resistance you feel when approaching your dreams, it means you are getting close to something real, something authentic, something that matters more than comfort or safety. You are approaching your calling, your next level of existence, your appointment with greatness. Let me share something most people will never tell you, because they lack the courage to face this truth themselves. The fear never fully disappears, not for the brave, not for the successful, not for those whose names echo through history. The fear remains present, but they have made peace with its presence. They have learned to walk with it as a companion rather than allowing it to walk over them as a master. They keep moving forward even while shaking inside, and that is what makes them truly fearless. Not that they feel nothing, but that they refuse to be owned by anything, especially by fear. So when fear shows up at your door tomorrow, look it directly in the eyes and say, "Thank you for the signal. I see you. I acknowledge you. But I am not stopping because of you." Then take that step anyway. Make the phone call anyway. Hit publish anyway. Say yes anyway. Say no anyway. Speak the truth that scares you anyway. The moment you lean toward the fire instead of away from it, the moment you move into fear rather than retreating from it, the fear begins to fade like smoke in a strong wind. What remains is pure freedom. The freedom to live as you were designed to live, without permission from fear. Here stands a truth nobody wants to hear, but everybody needs to understand. You will not become fearless by waiting to feel brave. You do not kill fear through feelings. You kill fear through discipline, through action, through the systematic training of your will. Motivation comes and goes like weather, arriving as a spark, quick, loud, exciting, but tragically short-lived. Discipline, on the other hand, burns like a steady flame, providing the consistent engine behind every fearless life ever lived. When you train yourself to act not when you feel like it, but when action needs to be taken regardless of your emotional state, you become dangerous to every limitation that has ever controlled you. You become untouchable by the moods and feelings that paralyze ordinary people. Courage is not a lightning bolt of inspiration that strikes randomly from heaven. Courage is a decision, a daily, moment-by-moment decision to show up, to do the hard things, to lean into discomfort again and again, especially when your mind screams for the false safety of your comfort zone. This is what separates the truly great from the merely hopeful. The great ones understand that they do not wait for confidence to arrive before taking action. They take action, and confidence follows naturally. They do not wait for fear to vanish before making their move. They do the thing anyway, and fear learns it has no rightful place in their decision-making process. Discipline silences fear because it removes negotiation from the equation. There is no internal debate, no should I or shouldn't I conversation that gives fear time to build its case. The decision has already been made in advance. When the alarm rings, you rise without question. When the task is difficult, you do it anyway, without complaint. When the voice of doubt whispers its familiar poison, you walk forward in spite of it with the mechanical precision of a man who has already decided who he will be. That is discipline in its purest form, and that is how the fearless are forged in the fires of consistent action. The more you act in the presence of fear, the more you rewire your nervous system. You condition your mind to understand that fear is not danger, it is simply data. And data does not control you. It merely informs you. Ask yourself with brutal honesty, Are you living by feeling, or are you living by principle? If fear still calls the shots in your major life decisions, then the time has come to make the fundamental shift that will change everything. Build rituals that strengthen your mind like steel. Surround yourself with constant reminders of your vision. Keep your commitments to yourself with religious devotion. Take one small act of courage every single day, no matter how small it may seem. When you make discipline your master instead of emotion, you become consistent in your pursuit of excellence. When you become consistent, you become inevitable in your achievement of goals that once seemed impossible. This is the path, and it has been walked by every fearless soul who ever lived. Picture this scene with vivid clarity. You are lying on your deathbed, drawing your final breaths, surrounded not only by memories of what you accomplished, but by the ghostly presence of every dream you never pursued, every risk you never took, every version of yourself that could have existed but never did. These phantom selves gather around you like a jury, their eyes filled with one burning question that pierces your soul. Why did you let fear decide for us? Why did you choose safety over significance? Fear does not merely steal your moments, it commits the ultimate theft by stealing your legacy, your contribution, your unique mark upon this world. It convinces you to shrink when you were designed to expand, to play it safe when you were built for greatness, to sit down and be quiet when you were born to stand tall and speak truth. But what if you could see with perfect clarity the future that fear is quietly robbing from you? What if you could witness the life that waits on the other side of courage, the impact you could make, the lives you could touch, the legacy you could leave? Most people do not realize they are actively choosing fear over fulfillment. They believe they are choosing comfort, safety, and familiarity. But what they are actually doing is burying their greatness under a mountain of excuses, trading their potential impact for temporary ease, exchanging their legacy for momentary security. Let me be absolutely clear about this. No one builds monuments to the person who stayed silent when truth needed to be spoken. No one writes songs about the individual who avoided failure by never trying. No one remembers the name of someone who chose the easy path when the hard path led to greatness. The world is moved and shaped by those who were scared beyond measure, but moved forward anyway. By those who stood up when everyone else sat down, by those who spoke out when everyone else remained silent, by those who stepped forward despite the trembling in their voice and the knot of anxiety in their stomach. Fear will always offer you comfort, but legacy demands discomfort. Legacy requires pain, sacrifice, risk, and the willingness to look foolish in pursuit of something magnificent. Legacy demands that you decide once and for all what matters more: the opinions of others who will be forgotten, or the opinion you will have of yourself when your time runs out. Ask yourself right now, in this moment of brutal honesty, what will your life say when you are gone? Will it whisper of missed chances and silent regrets, of dreams deferred and opportunities ignored? Or will it roar with the sound of someone who chose purpose over paralysis, action over avoidance, courage over comfort? You do not need to see every step of the journey before you begin walking. You simply need to refuse to let fear have the final word in the story of your life. Your legacy is being written either way, moment by moment, choice by choice. Only one version ends with you truly free. If fear operates as a liar, then your daily routine becomes the truth teller that exposes every one of its deceptions. It is not merely mindset that slays fear. It is movement, action, the systematic training of your entire being to respond to challenge with courage rather than retreat. Fear is not conquered through one dramatic, heroic moment. It is destroyed through the habits that turn courage into your natural state, through small daily rituals that suffocate fear before it has the opportunity to speak its poison into your consciousness. The fearless are not born brave. They are forged by discipline, shaped by consistent action, molded by daily choices that others refuse to make. Start with this simple but powerful practice. Each morning, do something that makes you slightly uncomfortable. Not something reckless or dangerous, but something that causes your heart to beat a little faster. Something that challenges your natural tendency toward comfort. Take a cold shower that shocks your system awake. Have an honest conversation you have been avoiding. Make a phone call that requires courage. Why does this matter? Because your nervous system must be trained like a muscle. And when you teach your body to survive discomfort, fear begins to lose its iron grip on your decisions. Your mind learns that discomfort is not death, that challenge is not catastrophe, that you are stronger than you previously believed. Second, move your physical body with intentional energy. Whether through lifting weights, running, walking, or any form of exercise, motion kills the stagnation where fear breeds. Stagnation serves as fear's favorite playground, but when you move your body, your mind follows with renewed confidence. Energy increases, clarity returns, strength builds, and fear discovers there is no room in a body that is actively in motion toward its goals. Third, speak power directly into your mind through affirmations that declare your true identity. Affirmation is not wishful thinking. It is warfare against the lies fear has planted in your consciousness. The thoughts you rehearse repeatedly become the beliefs you carry automatically. Every morning, stand tall before your mirror and declare with conviction, "I am not afraid. I am not here to shrink from challenge. I am here to lead others toward their greatness." Say it until you believe it with every fiber of your being. Then act in ways that make it undeniably true. Fourth, win the first battle of each day by accomplishing small tasks that build momentum. Make your bed with precision. Show up on time to every commitment. Finish tasks you do not feel like completing. When you start your day with a victory, fear loses a piece of its power over your psychology. Stack those daily wins consistently, and you build momentum that makes the impossible feel inevitable. Finally, reflect each evening with the honesty of a warrior examining his performance. Ask yourself, where did fear whisper today, and where did I push back with courage? This is how you refine your approach, how you become sharper and stronger, how you identify patterns that need to be changed. You become unshakable not by avoiding fear completely, but by facing it repeatedly until it breaks before you do. The fearless life is not an accident of genetics or luck. It is crafted with intention, built through repetition, forged through ruthless self-respect. If you want to kill fear permanently, do not wait to feel brave. Train yourself to be brave. Build it through daily practice. Develop it through one bold action at a time until courage becomes as natural as breathing. Today we do not merely discuss fear in abstract terms. We lay it to rest with finality. The truth that liberates is this: fear dies when you stop feeding it with your attention, when you stop bowing to its false authority, when you realize it possesses no real power except what you have granted it through years of unthinking surrender. From this moment forward, you reclaim that power completely. No more waiting for perfect conditions. No more hesitation disguised as prudence. No more shrinking to accommodate the comfort of others or the lies whispered by your past failures. You were not born to live a small life, tiptoeing through your days in fear of imaginary dangers. You were not designed to avoid risk, to hide from challenge, to whisper when you should roar with the voice of absolute conviction. You were built to walk through fire and emerge forged into something stronger, more resilient, more magnificent than you ever imagined possible. This is your moment of truth, not tomorrow when conditions seem more favorable, not when you feel completely ready, but now, in this instant, when choice hangs in the balance. You bury the fear, you silence the doubt, you take the first step forward and then another and another, until you no longer remember what it felt like to be ruled by hesitation and controlled by imaginary limitations. When fear shows its familiar face again, and it will, for that is its nature, you will smile with the confidence of one who has learned its game. You have studied its methods, outlasted its threats, trained your mind and body to walk forward regardless of its protests. Fear no longer gets a vote in your future because only your vision matters now. Only your mission carries weight. Only your purpose deserves your allegiance and attention. Stand up with the dignity of one who has chosen greatness. Straighten your spine with the posture of nobility. Look fear directly in the face one final time, and speak these words with the authority of absolute truth. Thank you for the lessons you have taught me, for the growth you have forced upon me, for the clarity you have provided about what truly matters. But now, I say goodbye, because I am finished letting fear decide who I get to become. This is your time, your moment, your appointed hour of liberation. You are fearless now, not because you feel nothing, but because you have chosen to be ruled by vision rather than limitation, by possibility rather than paralysis. But understand this clearly. What you have just experienced is only the beginning. In the next chapter of your transformation, we will go deeper into the construction of unshakable confidence. Not in theory that sounds good, but in daily action that produces results. You have slain the dragon of fear. Now comes the time to build the warrior who will never again bow to any limitation. The battle is won, but the victory must be maintained through discipline, through practice, through the daily choice to live as the fearless being you were always meant to become. Your other self, the one who never hesitates, never retreats, never surrenders to doubt, has been waiting patiently for this moment of your awakening. That magnificent version of yourself is no longer waiting. He is here, he is alive, and he is ready to take command of your destiny. The fearless life begins now.